Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you're well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more Reddit stories, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too, and let's crack on with today's first story. Much love guys. Now today's first story comes from Don't Steal My Passport from the Am I the Arsehole subreddit, and it says, Am I the arsehole for ransacking my boyfriend's apartment? I, female 25, have been with my boyfriend Jake, male 34, for 8 months. Things were fine until, against my better judgment, I moved into his place a couple of months ago. Since then, he's been getting kind of possessive and protective. I immediately told him to cut that shit out because it's off-putting, and things seem to get better. Anyway, I have a friend in Mexico who is getting married. I've been excited to fly down for her wedding since she told me she was engaged a year ago. However, Jake has made it clear that he doesn't want me to go. He says Mexico is too dangerous, even though I've been there many times and even lived there for a year. Speak Spanish, have friends there, and know my way around. No matter what I say, he doesn't want me to go. Then, a couple of days ago, my passport went missing from my nightstand. I'm supposed to go tomorrow, so I wouldn't have time to get a new one. I looked everywhere. No luck. When I asked Jake about it, he behaved a little suspiciously, but I dismissed it because I couldn't believe he would actually take my passport to keep me from going. But he's been giving me some red flags, so I decided to have a thorough look around. When he went out this morning, I started looking through everything. As I searched, I became increasingly certain that he took my passport. I started off carefully picking through drawers and cabinets, but as my anger grew, I became a lot less careful. I started turning out drawers, pried open a briefcase, made a total mess. But I found it. It was behind some books on the bookcase in his study. I never go in his study. He definitely put it there. Now he's furious with me for going through his things and ransacking his place. He said he would have given me my passport back and there was no need for me to go crazy. I'm just angry that he took it to begin with, and I don't believe him when he says he was going to give it back. This is only my third serious relationship, and I have no perspective on this kind of thing. Am I the arsehole for overreacting and ransacking my ex-boyfriend's place? Absolutely not the arsehole in this situation, right? I mean, the red flags are everywhere. And let's face it, the behavior was escalating. Opie was saying things were fine until she moved in. You know, as we always see in stories like this, once the victim in this becomes more isolated and dependent, then the controlling behavior can start showing up. And in this situation, he literally stole her passport to stop her physically leaving the country, and then got angry at her when she found them. And by the very end of the post, I was glad that Opie was already using ex-boyfriend, but a commenter said, not the arsehole. His behavior is controlling and unacceptable. Your passport is not a small thing, and you should be able to trust that important belongings are safe in your home. Please seriously consider ending this relationship. He's showing you what your future will be like with him. Another commenter says, if he'll take your passport to keep you from going to Mexico, he'll take your driver's license to keep you from leaving him. Another commenter says, not the arsehole. Even if you're in a relationship, the partner never has the right to do this kind of thing to you. He stole your property. He lied about it, and then he victimized. No, girl, leave him. That is not how relationships work. We all have our fair share of arguments during a lifetime, but this is crossing the personal boundaries and also illegal. Opie added an edit within that post and said, thanks for the replies. I guess I was in a weird state of disbelief that he did that, and it made me question everything. Now I've stopped shaking and had time to think. Talk to my mum and read through these replies. I feel kinda silly for even wondering if I did something wrong. Suffice to say, it's over for good. I've blocked him on everything and my dad and brother are over there getting what's left of my stuff. I'm going to try and put it out of my mind and focus on my awesome trip. So people were replying to that and saying, not the arsehole, move out immediately and don't look back. This is the start of an abusive relationship. Is starting lightly with the controlling so that you get used to it. That you even question that you're the arsehole for looking for your passport that he stole means that he is already succeeding. For your future safety, run. You're not in so deep that you can't get out. Opie says thank you. I'm at my parents' house now, and my dad told me the exact same thing. It's good to hear it from other people. Write your own ending says not the arsehole, run now. Don't go back to his apartment. In fact, stay in Mexico till you have somewhere else to stay. I understand you're unsure, so here's your validation. He's controlling, it's happening fast, and will not stop. Stealing your passport, he would not have given it back. It's highly illegal, immoral, dangerous behavior. Now he's gaslighting you, saying you were crazy after you caught him stealing your passport. Do not stay with this man. And Opie said, thank you. I needed to hear this. I've enlisted the help of my family and I'm out. I'm honestly a little afraid to see him again, but I'm ending it for good anyway. And it's a huge relief to see that Opie did get out of that relationship and was straight out of there, out of the supportive system to help get her stuff back without her having to be in contact with this guy. The scary thing I always find is, that guy is still out there. That guy will meet someone else, and that guy probably will try the same shit again, which I always find absolutely terrifying. But what do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below, and let's move on to another story. Now, our next story comes from CLavishness7325 from the Am I the Arsehole Here subreddit. And it says, am I the arsehole here for calling my boyfriend childish for always buying Captain Crunch when he goes grocery shopping? He, 26 male, does this every time he comes back from the grocery store. He says because it's his favorite cereal, but why can't you just buy it once in a while? I, 27 female, just feel like he's too old to be at the grocery store buying a sugary cereal for himself every time. Maybe if he was shopping for children, it would make sense. But we don't have kids. He's an adult. He's not overweight or anything. He's in shape, but I think it's childish that he always has to buy Captain Crunch. When he came back from the grocery store yesterday, I asked him how it felt to be such a man-child. He was confused. I pointed out the Captain Crunch. He says that it's just cereal and that I'm overreacting over something that isn't even deep. I wouldn't care if it was once in a while, but every time. Do you all understand where I'm coming from here? Am I the arsehole here? Now, I saw the title on this one and I thought, surely she's not embarrassed just about the type of cereal he's eating, and she must be concerned about, his sugar intake or something along those lines, concerned about his health. Coming from a place of care and love, even if it is misguided, right? But no, just literally embarrassed that her boyfriend enjoys Captain Crunch, embarrassed about that. I'm not sure if we got that cereal in the UK. The only thing I think of that was a sugary cereal was Sugar Puffs in the UK. Oh, mate. But anyway, she's not worried about him. She's worried about what it actually looks like, which tells you everything, right? That buying a sugary cereal isn't an adult thing to do. Oh, just bloody hell, man. And the irony of it all is, obsessing over your partner's cereal choices and calling them names about it is actually the childish behavior. But a commenter says, yes, you're the arsehole. When you go grocery shopping, why do you always buy something that you like? Is it because you are childish or because you like eating foods that you like? Opie says, in my opinion, cereals like Captain Crunch, Fruit Loops, Lucky Charms, Frosted Flakes, etc. are for children. Adults can eat them. I love having Frosted Flakes sometimes, but I don't need to buy it every time I'm at the grocery store. Commenter says, you're the arsehole. It is cereal. This is a large overreaction. He's literally in shape. Let him eat whatever he wants. Opie says, quoting, this is a large overreaction, and says, to be fair, I called him a man-child as a joke, but the joke didn't land for him. Commenter says, what's the big deal? If he likes it and doesn't have health issues, let him get it. Opie says, like I said, he's in shape and pretty muscular. But is there anyone who's past college buying a sugary cereal every time they go grocery shopping? I'm not saying it's wrong to love Captain Crunch or any other sugary cereal. Frosted Flakes is probably one of my favorite things to eat, but I don't buy it every time I go grocery shopping. I never said he was wrong for loving the cereal. This is wild. What's going on here? Commenter says, you're the arsehole. Holy shit. Release this poor man from your talons. What an absolute non-issue you're trying to create problems over. I bet you have a dozen examples where he does nothing wrong and you're just bored with your miserable life, so you make problems. Opie says, I feel like anybody who's been in a relationship with their partner for at least a year gets annoyed at them over the smallest things. But it's only a sign that you love them. Ooh, if you have siblings, you'll probably understand that their existence can get on your nerves. My little brother growing up. But you still love them because you have a love-hate relationship with your siblings. Commenter says, quoting, adults can eat them. And says, so what's the problem here? It's clear one of his favorite foods. You hate him or something. Opie says, how could you come to that conclusion when I chose to date him out of all the men out there and live with him on top of that? So at some point later, OP comes in with their update and says you guys were all dragging and harassing me in the comments, which was very uncalled for. But I apologized to him and told him he could buy as many Captain Crunch boxes as he wants and I won't judge him for it. Thus, hopefully this satisfied everyone who was hating on me in the comments. I didn't expect people to be so angry at me and I feel like I was extremely misunderstood in the comments. You all gotta remember that you guys don't know me in real life and to judge my character over one situation isn't fair or accurate. Like I said, I apologized and admitted to him that I was wrong and the two of us are good. That didn't feel like a very positive update, did it? Felt more like, yeah, I've apologized to him because you're all calling me an arsehole, there, have it, kind of thing. The poor guy, he is going to be judged for his Captain Crunch. Kinda wish I could send him a pallet of it. A commenter says, dump your boyfriend, he deserves better than you. Opie says, what y'all don't know is that I love him and very happy where I'm at. You guys know nothing about us. Commenter says, you also have to realize you're giving a snapshot of your life, and based on that snapshot and opinion, you're asking for people to give their opinions. So yeah, nobody knows you in real life, and based on how you described yourself, nobody really wants to. Opie says, I was called toxic, controlling, abusive, childish, and people want my boyfriend to dump me. I mean, you called him childish. Commenter says, correct, because you are. All over breakfast cereal. Opie says, I love how you guys are talking about everything but the part where I said I apologized and told him he can get as much Captain Crunch as he wants. And the commenter says, okay, but did you learn the lesson that controlling your partner's eating habits is literal abusive behavior? Opie says, he's a tall man with muscle. I'm short and a woman. Where am I abusive to him? I never forced him to return it. Plus you'll keep ignoring the part where I said I apologized. Just like face palming right now. I just don't know what to say. But what do you guys make of this situation? Bloody hell. Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. And let's move on to another story. Now our next story comes from the Am I the Arsehole Here subreddit from Glittering Humor 802. You may have heard parts of the story on other channels maybe, but there is a new update to it as well, so if you want to skip certain parts of the story, please feel free to do so. Timestamps are always down in the description and along the timeline below. Thank you. It's titled, Am I the Arsehole Here for siding with my husband and not with my kids? Okay, I know the title sounds bad, but for some context, I, 36 female, have twins with my ex, 42 male. A girl, Olivia, and a boy, Enzo, who are now 16 years old. My ex is one hell of an arsehole. We ended our relationship because he had cheated on me while I was pregnant. And not happy with that, he never paid child support and was absent from their lives most of the time, only coming back once or twice during the year to play the fun dad. But well, of course, his absence affected my kids a lot. Anyway, when Olivia and Enzo were a year old, I reconnected with an ex from high school, Ian, 36 male, and we started dating. The main reason we had broken up is that I wanted kids in the future and he wasn't sure. And since 2 seemed more than enough for me, that problem was out of the way. Ian wasn't involved at first with Olivia and Enzo, but after we moved in together, over 2 years later, he began to help me without me having to ask, which I was really grateful for, and they eventually formed a bond. We got married and Olivia and Enzo called Ian Dad for as long as I can remember, although they always knew he wasn't their biological father. Ian and I make the same amount of money, and we live in a house I inherited from my father, and Ian only earns a bit less than me. There's not a big difference. With time, my ex went from showing up once or twice a year to not showing up at all for a couple of years, which is when their bond became even stronger. And Ian told me he wanted to adopt them because he saw them as his own kids, and he truly felt like their father. However, that never actually happened because it was a legal mess in our country. we didn't want to get into. Now, last year out of the blue, my ex showed up again, claiming to be a different man now and wanted to rekindle their relationship. They fell for his act despite Ian and I warning them about not trusting him completely, which is okay, I guess. They have a right to want a relationship with him. The problem started when they began to ignore Ian. It's like they were treating him like a replacement they no longer needed. And of course, my husband noticed this. One night it escalated because they were having a really dumb fight that started because Enzo had not cleaned the kitchen after cooking. And we have this important rule in the house that pretty much means that each one is usually responsible for cleaning their own mess. And well, Ian just went inside their room to tell him he needed to clean, and Enzo began to yell at him. Olivia joined in and they were telling him how exhausted they were about Ian treating them as if he were their real father. That they had a father and he shouldn't act like one just because he didn't have kids of their own. I remember Ian just left the house that night without saying a word. And I told Olivia and Enzo they had made the wrong choice treating Ian like this. And when their real dad leaves again, I didn't want to see them crawling back to the one who actually took care of them and was always there. Ian came back the next day and he was incredibly upset. I did my best to comfort him and he told me he felt disrespected and there was no coming back from this. It was hard to hear, but I told him that if he no longer wanted to be involved in the twins' lives, I wouldn't be angry at him. He cried a lot that night and cried himself to sleep during the next days. It was awful to see him like this and I couldn't do anything but try to comfort him. I tried to talk to my kids to tell them they really needed to apologize, but they refused completely, saying they had a dad and didn't need them, and it made me question what kind of kids I was raising. As predicted, from one day to the other, I left the city and never called Olivia or Enzo again. When they realized what had happened, they were devastated. I was there for them, but it shocked me how they wanted to pretend everything was okay between them and Ian, calling him dad again. Ian simply told them he was not their dad and would clearly never be. This has been going on for a while. They were thinking Ian would change his mind eventually and forgive them, but that has not happened. As a last card, they came to me and told me to speak to Ian. I told them we had talked many times and it was clear Ian would no longer be involved in their lives, which is what they always wanted anyway. So I don't know what the problem was. They were shocked with my response and kept trying to convince me, but I made it clear that my husband is a human with feelings, not a wallet and replacement for the pathetic man they like to call real dad. And that if they thought they could disrespect people that care for them without any consequence, then they were very, very wrong. I told them there was no going back from this, that things would not be the same, and that they had themselves to blame for that. They shouldn't have taken for granted a person that was always there for them. They went crying to my mum after that, and she told me she understood why I was upset with them, but couldn't side with my husband in this. That they are kids that made a mistake and deserved a second chance maybe, and I should try to solve things. And to be honest, I don't think I can. I love my kids and they will always be my priority, and this has not changed my love for them. But I also love my husband, and he's such a great man who stepped up when he didn't have an obligation, and was such a support for me and for the kids. He was the father they never had for so long, and even if I try, I don't think I'm even close to know the amount of pain that can cause you to have kids that you raised as your own for years to tell you you're not their real dad and to treat you as literal trash. As much as I want them to make up, I know my husband is so hurt, and they caused that over what? A man they had seen barely 7 times in their whole life. Ian is now convinced that Enzo and Olivia don't love him and only saw him as a replacement, and he thinks that if their real dad ever shows up again, they would treat him like crap again. And well, although I don't think my kids would do that, I know he has every right to feel that way, and if Ian no longer feels comfortable involved in my kid's life, then I don't think I can contradict him. It just broke the relationship. Ian is usually a pretty reasonable man, and he has thought a lot about this. So I know he's sure about his choice. I know he has been crushed with this, and now he wants us to have a kid. But I told him no because I believe he just wants to replace Olivia and Enzo. Despite respecting my husband's decision, I don't want my kids to lose the man they've seen as their father ever since they can remember. I know it's going to crush them, and it will affect them even more in the future. And sometimes I wonder if I should listen to my mum and try to talk to Ian into trying to repair the relationship, but I don't know. Am I the arsehole? A commenter said to OP, not the arsehole, but I do think you could give the kids a little more grace. Their bio dad is clearly fucking them up. Are they in therapy? If not, maybe consider it. Opie said they started going when they were about 11 or 12, and it really helped at the time, but they stopped going when they were 14. I don't know if they would agree to go again. Opie responds to a comment about family therapy and says he's not talking to them at all, and he's nowhere near being abusive. When it comes to having another kid, I truly don't know. He hasn't mentioned it again, therefore I don't know if he really meant it. As I said, if Ian doesn't want to work things out with the kids, I have no right to tell him he should. It has to be his choice, and given the circumstances, yeah, I guess I have to accept this from now on. There's no one else for me than Ian. That won't change. Commenter says, you're the arsehole for denying that man his own kids, but it's probably for the best, as there's only a small chance this marriage makes it anyway. Ian is right. There's no going back what your kids did to him and the pain they caused. Best of luck, but this situation isn't going to last long term. It simply can't. Opie says, I don't have to give him kids if I don't want to. It's easy to say that when you're a man who doesn't have to give birth, and as stated, our marriage is still going strong. This doesn't have anything to do with us as a couple, and the truth is, you can't make the decision of having a kid in a situation like this. I really feel for any woman you have around if you believe you're entitled to their body and their life choices. Commenter says, everyone sucks here. Your kids were jerks, but they're 16. Your husband has the right to be hurt, but he's a grown adult. These kids never had to learn how to have a dad and stepdad. It came out of the blue. They did it terribly, and now the stepdad is hurt. But what is the lesson here? Stepdad will only be there for you when you are nice. Love is conditional. There's no repairing this mistake with your parent. As a family, you have to create a pathway to reunification and repair of this. Stepdad gets to lick his wounds, but creating and keeping a grudge will poison you all. Opie says, he's an adult, they're kids, so he should just forgive them after they crushed his heart logic doesn't work well as you think it does. It does not work like that. Commenter replies saying, I actually did not say they should just be forgiven. That would teach a terrible lesson to the kids, that they could be awful and it's all just going to go away. They're not 6 after all. I said that they need to find a pathway to reunification. That may take some time. Opie says, yeah, you basically implied he just needed to forgive them, but it does not work at all. They crushed him. They didn't just hurt him. I had never seen him like that. And Opie responded to multiple downvoted comments accusing Opie's husband of using the silent treatment as an abusive behavior towards the twins, and says, if you think that taking time and space from people that hurt you is abusive, you don't know what abusive means in the first place. And well, I'm trying to help them with their issues with their bio-father, but their traumas will never justify the way they treated the man that was there during their entire lives. And they showed him how little he meant to them the second their real dad showed up in their lives. It's obvious that Ian was going to think they only see him as a replacement, and he's probably right. Clearly, you're projecting too much, not even realizing that what my kids did hurt my husband like nothing else did, and there's no going back from that. It's not a dumb thing. And the person they've known as a father was never distant and was always there for them. They just chose to show he meant nothing to them because a man who they saw 10 times max in their whole life showed up. Doing that is not a dumb mistake. It's cruel, it's mean, and it's fucking stupid. They never apologized, and they didn't seem sorry to the man that raised them during their whole life and could barely get out of bed thanks to them. But when their real dad left, they tried to act like everything was fine. Ian has every right to take as much time as he wants from them, and they are the ones who have to apologize, and that's the end of it. They won't get out of it by playing the dumb teenagers card, and that's how life works. Opie also says their father was Ian. He was always there ever since they can remember. They saw their bio dad max 10 times in their whole life, and I mentioned in a couple of comments that they did go to therapy, and they stopped going eventually because the therapist said they were okay and had worked through their issues. But well, it was their choice, and only theirs to throw everything they built with Ian over a man they didn't know and abandon them. And like I said, Enzo and Olivia were never shitty before. They were only shitty to Ian. And they don't have a lot of trauma. They grew up with 2 loving parents, loving grandparents, never lacked anything. They were never bullied or abused by anyone. Their only trauma was having a terrible bio-father that they decided to let back in as if nothing had happened. Commenter says, I feel like you and your husband are forgetting these are children. You're being super immature. Children learn things on their own. Yes, they were wrong for how they treated Ian, but they're kids. You're acting like they're in their 30s and a man's this decision. Their frontal lobes aren't even fully formed. Parenting is supposed to be about unconditional love and support. Instead of rejecting them to teach them a lesson, why don't you act like an adult in the room and have a conversation with them like people and explaining your side so they can also explain theirs? You're the arsehole cause you're an adult. Opie says they're 16 years old, only 2 weeks away from turning 17. Treating this as some dumb mistake kids do surely won't be a mistake I make. What they did was terrible, and they still haven't actually tried to mend things, haven't even apologized yet. With the logic of teenagers do dumb things, you cannot justify much, and this definitely isn't one of those things. Commenter replies saying, wow, you and your ex and Ian are all assholes. Those poor kids. They are teenagers going through a very complex and tough situation with bio-dad, and the only adults they can rely on both abandon them. You're the adults and you're acting like petty little toddlers. My god. Yes, 100% you're the arsehole. Opie says, I'm not abandoning them. I just won't let them treat my husband as a replacement. They had a dad their whole lives who loved them and took care of them. They just chose to treat him like shit because their deadbeat real dad showed up after nearly 10 years. I raised them better than to bite the hand of the person that was always there. I still have obligations with them and will until the day I die. But I won't treat two persons who are about to turn 17 like toddlers who made a dumb mistake when they knew pretty well what they were doing and they were hurting Ian. They just didn't care. Ian doesn't have an obligation anymore with them. As much as it hurts them, it was their choice and only theirs. And a commenter says, quoting, now he wants us to have a kid, but I told him no because I believe he just wants to replace Olivia and Enzo. And says, this is the only part where I don't agree with OP. I think Ian learned the joy and beauty of having children through the twins, and although he's lost that and is clearly grieving over it, to dismiss his desire for the chance of having that again just sounds cruel. The twins treated Ian like a replacement father and it broke him, and now Opie is accusing Ian of the same appalling behavior by trying to replace the twins. That's a knife in the back when he's at his most vulnerable. This assumption by her could very well bite her on the ass and drive a wedge between her and Ian, leaving the poor guy with nothing. He's the one I really feel for in all this mess. Opie says I don't know about that yet. If he truly wants to have a kid, then I would think about it, but truth is, I don't think he's in the right place to actually think about what having another kid means. So it was nearly 8 months later that OP came in with an update and said, so I know it's been a while since I last posted. I'd even forgot, to be honest, but I opened Reddit today and figured I could update, since things have changed this past month, although I doubt anyone remembers about it. Well, I'm going to start by saying that, despite the accusations I received of being too harsh on my kids here, I consider I acted well by not cuddling them and by not taking their side. Not because I wanted them to suffer, but to show them actions have consequences, that you can't walk over anyone and you can't take any relationship for granted. However, I did let them know things hadn't changed between us, that I loved them just as much, that nothing would change that, and that I wanted to help them heal from everything. I don't remember mentioning it, but my kids went to therapy to deal with certain issues when they were young, but stopped going because they felt like they didn't need it anymore. Even the therapist said so. But after everything, I came to the obvious conclusion that they were too vulnerable to manipulation and that their biofather's actions had affected them worse than I thought. So I tried to convince them to go back. It was hard, but I managed to convince Olivia at first, and she ended up convincing Enzo. It took some time, but they began to heal, slowly. They made progress, and they both wrote 2 different long messages to Ian, acknowledging what they did wrong and apologizing for everything, explaining why they did it, and telling him they regret what they've done to him. Of course, this didn't fix things. Things didn't go back to normal, but Ian accepted the apology, and they've been cordial ever since. So, as I mentioned in the last post, all they said and did affected my husband terribly. He also started therapy. He opened up to me about everything. It took a while for him to go back to his old self, but he did, and we decided to take a 1-month vacation to get away from things. He and I are better than ever, to be honest. He was really thankful I had supported him and told me he didn't think he could have gotten out of that hole if it weren't for me. When it comes to talking about having kids, we've been discussing it seriously. He mentioned at first he thinks it did come out as a suggestion that came from all the hurt that Olivia and Enzo put him through, but that he has been talking about it with his therapist and came to the conclusion he does want kids of his own. The only reason why he thought he didn't want one was because his father was terrible and was terrified of repeating patterns. But with Olivia and Enzo, he had learned he really wanted to be one. But since he had them, he didn't think he'd want to have any more. Now he lost them and wants to know what it is to have a kid he can raise, take care of, and to love each other. We discussed it for a couple of weeks and then started trying, and I found out I was pregnant last month. Ian has been really happy, and Enzo and Olivia are excited to have a sibling, which is quite unexpected. I'm honestly scared to have to give birth again, because it wasn't at all a nice experience, but I want to have another kid. Anyway, as I mentioned, Ian, Enzo and Olivia are now cordial. Sadly, I doubt they can rebuild what they had, but I guess only time will tell if there's a chance for Ian to change his mind. Enzo and Olivia were pretty sad with dealing with the fact that they may not go back to what it was with Ian. But I told them they need to focus on themselves right now. They finished secondary school last year and will start university in March, so they will move to the capital next week. I told them to focus on their lives, their friends and their career, and let time heal some wounds. It's the only thing they can do now. That, and finally learn no matter how badly they want to believe otherwise. Their bio father is a terrible father and a terrible man that wants nothing but to manipulate them, and they need to stand up for themselves. So this is pretty much it for now. If anything else changes, I may edit this if I remember to do so. Thanks for all the nice comments on the last post. Goodbye. So there were some more comments with OP replying. Some of the comments she's saying, teenagers are fucking stupid. The teenagers were manipulated and not excusing what they did, but the only winner seems to be as the ex here who destroyed their relationship. OP replying saying again that she doesn't believe that they can't be held accountable because they're only teenagers. Other people have an empathy with the teenagers at the same time, and OP just saying that the twins made their choices and Ian just decided to respect it. And they don't get to be cuddled when they fuck up and treat people like shit. And this is one of those ones where I may get hate for my opinion on this, especially looking at some of those comments, but because I get Ian is absolutely distraught. I mean, the kid's absolutely screwed up. Like the mum was saying, they're 16, not 6, old enough to understand you can't just discard someone who raised you for 15 years when your bio dad shows up. That is going to hurt really badly. But fully pulling away from teenagers who are clearly being manipulated by their deadbeat dad is just punishment. And like one of the commenters saying, where's the path back? And of course he has every right to his feelings, 100%, I get that. But you've been their father for 15 years. You don't just get to stop when they hurt you. And I don't know how many times I'm going to say that Ian's totally entitled to his feelings, because he is. Because I feel like I need to say that because I feel people will latch on to that. But at the same time, these 16-year-olds who's had a deadbeat dad that just manipulated by this guy, I can't imagine what their future life is going to look like and the feelings around, the feelings they're going to have to deal with in the future. Because I feel like another child coming into this, them being, shipped off to university, it almost felt like wash your hands with them now. The twins are being told, focus on yourself, go to university, let time heal things, which felt like more talk saying, we're done here, best of luck. I don't know. As I said, I might get hate on this one, but I just feel that's a really sad situation. But now, I'm going to turn it to you guys. What do you guys make of this one? What's your opinion on the matter? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Now, just a huge thank you for being here today, getting involved in the stories, your love, your support, your time. It always means the absolute world to me. So thank you so much. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Take care and much love.